The bandwidth for this episode of God and Guns is sponsored by the Firearms Radio Network, firearmsradio.tv.
Welcome back to episode 159 of the God and Guns podcast. I'm your host, Troy.
And I'm your other host, Doug.
We use this podcast to talk about God, guns, the responsible Christian gun owner's interest. On this week's show, we'll be talking with Lyman Bishop of Hoplite Armor. Well, we want to welcome on the show tonight Lyman Bishop. He is the owner of Hoplite Armor, and I got the opportunity to meet up with you guys up at the
VFOB, Veteran Family of Business.
Yeah, I done messed up. Let's start over. No, that's normal for me. Veterans Family of Brands up in Big Fork, Montana. I've been running wide open all day, guys, so I'm sorry if I stumbled all over the place today. Everything was working fine, and then right before we went to contact, when I hooked up with Doug, the Skype quit working. And so I was telling Lyman it was on his end today, and then later on my mic wasn't working, and so it's been a little crazy here the last few minutes. But Lyman has been gracious enough to come on tonight and explain about his company, about himself, what brought him here, and just want to welcome you on the show tonight.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you both for having me on.
No, it's our honor. You have some great products, the things that we got to see up there at the show. I mean, I've been interested in trying to purchase armor for myself for a while, but to be honest, when I was first starting to look, I mean, I was 400 pounds. There's nothing out there that's going to fit me normal size. And so I'm down now. I'm down the low threes. I'm heading for 200, the 200s. So there's hope in the air that I'm going to be there by, Christmas. But
well, no matter how big your outsides get, your insides stay the same. And that's what we're trying to cover is those vitals. Yeah. And, you are a bigger gentleman, and so I do have, as most vendors might have, plates that would accommodate a larger frame. I myself wear an extra large, so, okay. That would be an 11 by 14. And, there are a lot of mysteries, I think, with body armor, a lot of questions that people have, things that takes them months of research to figure out. And I always tell people, look, give me a call. 15 minutes on the phone with me, and I'll save you 3 months of headaches.
Yeah, I mean, when we were up there talking, you were explaining all to me, your heart's not twice as big as everyone else's. It might be a little bit over large, but all those things will fit in the right configuration. So, you have some great stuff in the side arm pads, the shoulder pads you guys have. Those are cool. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So, obviously for years people have gotten accustomed to what they call the DAPS, or the Deltoid Auxiliary Protection System, which is a deltoid protector comprised of soft armor Kevlar. And the problem with that is that with soft armor, with Kevlar, the most you're going to stop is 44 Magnum, right? And so obviously that's not the real threat that either our soldiers or our police or, God forbid, our civilians might be facing in the future. It's rifle rounds. That's what we need to stop. Right. And I've got a good friend of mine, Lonnie Young. He was in the Marine Corps, 2004 at the Battle of Anjaf. Him and a dozen other guys up on a rooftop. They're getting overrun by 800 enemy combatants. Wow. And they're standing their ground. They're taking them out, picking them off like flies. But, lo and behold, his buddy next to him takes a shot through the neck, and he's there trying to pinch off the artery. And he takes 2 rounds. One of them fragged off a brick, hit him in the cheek, and, tough guy that he is, he just popped it right out of his eyelid, no problem. But the other one struck him in the deltoid. Yeah. And it struck him towards the back of the deltoid. So what happened was he got lucky. The round went under the skin and behind his back plate and more or less scooted along under his skin until it got right to his spine and stopped just short of it. The problem is, and he was lucky, he survived, no problem, no major injuries. It took him out of the fight, but had that shot been an inch or two further forward, it easily could have penetrated his thoracic cavity. Now you're talking heart and lungs. You're talking a significantly, greater wound at that point as opposed to, what he did suffer. And, so that really inspired me to develop hard armor shoulder plates. And, I had been working as a mechanical engineer in the body armor industry for the better part of, well, going on now 15 years. You know, how long was it then? I don't know, probably 10 or more years I'd been in the industry. So it was easy enough for me to start, you know, using some of my, you know, skills I've developed over the years with 3D CAD design, beginning with actually a 3D scan of my body to obtain the geometry that I would then design the plates around. And, you know, it's been a hard-fought battle going through that process. You know, I could tell you all sorts of stories over the years of the trials and tribulations I've faced, but, you know, I feel like we've really kind of made it over that initial hump, launched the company, got the product out there, and we're getting a lot of attention now. And I think, you know, time is going to tell, but I think we're going to save a lot of lives and certainly prevent a lot of injuries.
Awesome. Yeah. So tell us about, you know, what led you to start. I mean, you already started telling us a little bit about what's led you to start the company and your mission focus for the company and your ministry itself.
Yeah. And, you know, this business really has turned into a ministry as much as anything else. And I tell people all the time, you know, I'm not in it for the money. I don't care where you buy your body armor, just good body armor. Be safe, you know, prepare for any eventuality. And, you know, what really led me into this was, I suppose it started with the death of a couple family members by way of firearms and, you know, wanting to stop bullets. And, you know, it wasn't until later when my friend Lonnie got injured that sort of evolved into the shoulder plates. But, you know, I do have to say that, you know, without question, everything that I'm doing at this stage of my life, whether it's business or personal or otherwise, is the direct result of God's will in my life. And, you know, where to start? I mean, I can go back 4 years to when I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And, you know, I had a pretty powerful experience with that whole situation. And I hesitate to go into too much detail, but, you know, we're among friends here, Christians who will understand what I'm about to tell you. So I'll go ahead and dig into it. And it basically went like this. You know, I got diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Right. And, you know, I was upset for, you know, a day or two. In all honesty, it bothered me. But I came to a place where I sort of settled into it. And there was a night there where I was praying. And, you know, I didn't come crying to the Lord, oh, please save me, oh, this, that, or the other. I was thankful, first and foremost, that he had prompted me to get my first life insurance policy, which was approved 3 months before I was diagnosed. So right away, I knew my family was taken care of. Yeah. So no matter what happens, you know, I'm coming out of this fine. No problem. So my prayer wasn't begging for help. It was thanking God for his provision. And, you know, just coming before him to just lay myself at his feet. And you've probably experienced this before where you kind of have a conversation with God. You can hear his voice, not with your ears, but in the back of your mind. And, you know, what he told me, and I kid you not, as verbatim as I can quote it, he said to me, we are coming up on the main event, the World Series of human civilization. And I want you on the starting lineup. And I don't say this to give myself any credit whatsoever because I'll prove it to you here with my next comment. My response to him was, listen, you own me. I belong to you. Whatever you want me to do, I will do. And from this day forward, every word, every deed, every breath, and as much as I can, I will give it to you. But without the power of your Holy Spirit, you might as well bench me because I am of no good in and of myself. Right. And I went to sleep that night after, you know, much more prayer. And I woke up and went right back into prayer. And I was praying for, you know, effectively the baptism of the Holy Spirit. And I felt someone walk into the room. And I thought it was my wife. And I felt a hand on my shoulder. And I could tell that it was a right hand because I could feel the thumb. And I felt a hand on my leg. And I could tell it was the left hand because I could feel the thumb. And you know, I had my eyes closed, I'm praying, and I'm just assuming it's my wife. And 15 minutes later, I get to the point where I say amen. I open my eyes, I turn my head, and as I do, I feel the hands come off me. But there's nobody there.
Yep.
And, amazingly powerful. And, some people might hear that and think, I'm crazy. Well, I don't know what to tell you. This is what I experienced. And from that day forward, one miracle after another has led me to where I am. In fact, I was involved in some body armor projects prior to this. And there came a point about a year and a half ago where I was praying and I said, Lord, can we do something with this? I was sort of stuck as a result of the people I was partnered with, and we were 50-50, so nobody could do anything without the approval of the other, and we were stuck. And the next day I get a phone call from them. They wanted to buy me out. And, I saw that as a direct answer to my prayer.
Yeah.
And what I did there is I agreed to sell my interest in that company, provided they would sign off on me starting up my own company.
Right.
And competing with some of the products that we had developed. Of course, I agreed not to infringe on the intellectual property. But I got the go-ahead to do this thing and sold out. And I'll tell you, that was an answer to prayer right there, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And, oddly enough, the day after I started the company, what happens but Congressman Mike Honda, a Democrat out of California, proposes a bill titled H.R. 378, which is titled the so-called Responsible Body Armor Act, which would make it illegal for civilians to own or possess body armor unless you already own it. So, I found that to be quite a coincidence, and you probably agree with me, in the life of a Christian, there is no such thing as coincidence. So, I saw that as me being in the right place at the right time.
Right.
And the Lord brought some great people alongside me that have provided funding, mentors, all manner of help. God's involvement in this thing is so blatantly obvious that I'm shocked on a daily basis. I guess I should expect it. That's how he works. But it's amazing to me, the things that he does and the doors that he opens. And, some of the opportunities that we've been given. Huge contract potential that a new company would never get. Right. But because of the hard armor shoulder plates being they're so new and so unique, and really fill such a vital role, that some of these opportunities have opened up to us that, really are nothing short of miraculous.
Right.
And, of course, now in light of everything that's beginning to happen in society, the breakdown of the rule of law where police are being shot at, targeted, ambushed. I certainly feel like I'm in the right place at the right time.
Right. Well, as we saw in the last week, not only police, but if you're the wrong skin color, it's starting to be an issue as well. What was
Absolutely
Milwaukee?
Right.
They were trying to drag people out of their cars and stuff. It was,
and the Bible tells us that's going to happen, right? When it says nation will rise against nation, in the Greek, what does that say? It says ethnos will rise against ethnos. What's the root word there? Ethnicity, ethnic groups, races. And that's very unfortunate. And, thank God there are a good number of, believers from all walks of life, all races and colors and creeds. But there are those who, serve another master. Right. And it's those that are going to fulfill that prophecy, unfortunately.
Yeah. And
the best thing we can do is be prepared for, what we know is coming.
Right.
More of the same.
Yeah, the prophecy is declared, that we know what is going to happen. And to ignore it or to turn a deaf ear to it is not going to solve the problem. Sticking your fingers in your ears and making a lullaby sound. So... you have a real goal here, and it's sort of like your mantra, I guess it is, for your company. And did you want to explain that? You had the real goal, the Hoplite Armor.
Oh, the real goal of Hoplite Armor. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I definitely want to dig into that. And this is something that, the Lord has been leading me towards more and more recently. Not something I really expected to come about, but is really sort of shaping up. You think about these things. You lay down at night and you try to, envision where things are going. And in my mind, I've always pictured exactly this. And what is it? It's primarily Hoplite Armor, is being used to unite people. And that's the key here. Mm-hmm. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Right. And, for a long time, you've had some animosity between, various groups, let's say militias and police officers, or the average Joe and whoever, the federal law enforcement or police or whatever the case may be. Right. And the one thing that I tell people all the time, because I talk to people from all walks of life all the time, all day, every day. I talk so much, that's why I'm losing my voice. And, and the one thing that I try to tell people is just that, listen, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And when I talk to guys from various militia groups, I try to remind them that, look, number one, there's always someone bigger and badder than you. Mm-hmm. All right. So, and that's a big issue is pride. And we have to be able to let that go. Right. And, I try to make the point that, the police are necessary. We live in a republic, at least it's supposed to be. Yeah. And how is a republic defined? By way of the rule of law. Without law enforcement, there is no rule of law. There is no republic. The whole thing is lost. And so, what I'm seeing is a movement begin to take shape where people are recognizing exactly what I've been saying, that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, mm-hmm. and that people of like mind, find the common ground. If you're a patriot, or if you're a Christian, or, hopefully both, you've got something in common with a lot of people, right. And you can put away petty differences and work together towards a common goal. And what should that be? Preserving our freedom. Mm-hmm. Right. In a nutshell. And this is what God's doing. Right. And, I don't know where he's going to go with all this. All I know is that I feel like it's my job to be a watchman on the wall. Right.
Yeah, that's a lot of our mission here is just declaring, that we are standing for God no matter what, and then we're standing for the rule of law, that we're standing for
absolutely
the
first and foremost. That's what we have to be doing with our lives is dedicating it to God, right? Following His leading, going where He directs us, and really being willing to let go of anything and everything. And that's one lesson I learned mm-hmm. coming through cancer was that everything that I thought was important in life is not. Right. Other than my family and my God and my country, driving a fancy car means nothing. Mm-hmm. Living in a big house, who cares? Right. None of that is important. The only thing that's important is living my life in a way that is going to make my Lord proud.
Right. The verse comes to my mind is, he who seeks to save his life will lose it, and he who loses his life will gain it, will receive eternal life. So where I was at with that was I was to the point where I was getting a little neurotic about, not, clinically, but I was getting a little bit where I was just seeing so many things that the government and people in the government were doing that it was, trying to suppress my ability to express my beliefs and express my gospel of Jesus. To the where my wife was saying, hey, you probably need to tone it down because it's getting sort of serious. And I was like, I died of Christ. I died of myself. I live in Christ, and He's going to provide my needs. He's going to provide for everything I need. He's going to provide for my mm-hmm. eternal life, and my short time here is not going to matter. And when I came to that point, I had true freedom.
That's right.
Until I came to the point
exactly
to not being afraid of the enemy, that I'm more afraid of offending God and being disobedient to God than I am afraid of those who would come against me. As the Bible verse says, don't be afraid of the one who can take your life, be afraid of the one who can take your soul. So you need to worry about the eternal and not the terrestrial here and now. You need to worry about what God thinks, not what people think or what people can do to you or harm you. And so I understand exactly where you're coming from there. So
yeah, that is exactly right. And who was it? Edmund Burke that said, "All that is required for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing."
Right. I think Doug posted that this week. I think.
What's that?
I think you posted that line this week.
Yeah, I posted that quote this week, actually.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I sure did.
Yeah.
There's a coincidence, and we know where those are coming from.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I understand totally from where you came from. I didn't have a cancer thing, but it's just a matter of God said you need to step up to the game and quit playing, and I mean you need to step up and be real, and quit pretending to be a Christian and lay it on the line. And so I've been emboldened by that and just die to myself and live for Christ. I mean, as we're called to do. So you've got all kinds of cool products. Let's get into those. Let's tell us about your different product variations and all the stuff, all the good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, it starts with the hard armor shoulder plates, and that's what, really started the company. But, because of my experience in the industry and some of my contacts, as I got near to the point where I was going to launch, I was contacted by a number of those people to asking me to carry some of their products. And that includes helmets from Armor Source, and they are a U.S. manufacturer out of Ohio. They make high-grade ballistic helmets, military grade. In fact, they provide a lot of those helmets to the military. And so we distribute for them. The people that make our armor, LTC, Leading Technology Composites, out of Wichita, Kansas. They are one of the, I would say the world leader in body armor manufacture, certainly the largest and most well-respected. And so we've begun carrying some of their products, chest plates, side plates, things of that nature.
I have a quick question. On those helmets, what kind of rounds can those things stop or deflect, or is it just mostly for fragmentation? I don't understand the ballistic level of those kind of helmets.
Good question. So actually, the only thing that I sell on my website are the 3A helmets. Now, that's going to stop a 44 Magnum, but it's also going to protect you against fragmentation, things of that nature. However, I do have another helmet, and I haven't listed it because it is expensive.
Yeah.
It's a $1,500 helmet, but it'll stop a 308. It's a full level 3 helmet.
Wow.
And so that is available. And I've sold a couple of those to people outside of the website. Just send them a PayPal invoice. That's something they want, but it's not something I advertise because, a lot of people are very price sensitive.
Yeah.
And I try to accommodate that as much as I can. I mean, when we first launched the shoulder plates, we were charging $500 a set without the carrier. After working very closely and diligently with LTC to figure out ways to lower the cost, I was able to lower the cost on the what we call the V1 plate, which is a level 3+ polymer shoulder plate. We then launched V2, which is the lower cost version of this same thing, just a little thicker and a little heavier. Then more recently, we launched what we call V3. Now that's a level 3++ plate, and that's going to stop multiple hits from everything up to M855, your green tip,
right.
SS109. And then I actually came out with a V4 plate, which is just it's a drop down in level. It's a 3A plate. It's very thin, 3/8 of an inch thick, half a pound per plate, designed primarily for fire, EMS, patrol officers, or even extreme sports. Some of these Red Bull guys doing these crazy stunts. I made this whole 3A rig to give them some added protection.
Hey,
and
can I interject just a second? Sorry to take you off your pace. You said that helmet was $1,500. Yes. My uncle was a motorcycle sales guy for years and years. And of course, he sold helmets with the motorcycles. And we were picking out a helmet for my son. And the helmets, I mean, they were like $70 to $150, somewhere in that range. And she's always price conscious about things. She goes, "Well, you have any cheaper helmets than this?" And so his line there is, "Well, I don't know how much is your son's head worth?"
Yeah.
You will put a price on how much your son's head is worth. So has he got? He said, "Is he got a $20 head or has he got a $100 head?"
Right. That's right.
You have to pay for quality, right?
You bring up a good point, because where do you draw the line on that? I know a lot of people are price conscious, and that's led a lot of people to buy steel plates, which I refuse to sell. Primarily because I've seen them in action. having been in the industry as long as I have, you see everything, and I've seen bullets do some strange things. And when it comes to steel plates, okay, fine, they're cheap and they stop a lot of rounds, but what they don't stop is a simple 55 grain 5.56 M193. If it's traveling anywhere near 3,000 feet per second, it's going to punch right through it. In fact, I think the AR 500 site says 2,700 feet per second. Yeah. And honestly, I don't know how they can even get away with calling that level 3. But I know that's a sensitive topic because when I talk to people about it, some people get upset because they've got steel plates and they think I'm talking bad on their gear. I'm not. My whole point is, and I'll repeat it again, I've said it 1,000 times, I don't care where you buy your body armor. Just buy real body armor because you're going to need it. And, and here's the other thing too, right? I mean, how many guys do you know that have $5, $10, or maybe $20,000 or more worth of firearms, in their gun room? And then what? You're going to spend $300 on body armor? Mm-hmm. I don't know. To me, it seems like a misappropriation of funds. Right. Right. I mean, it's a pretty critical part because what is that rifle without the hand that holds it? Right. If there's holes in you, that rifle becomes useless. So certainly in today's environment, a very critical piece of equipment. And one other thing that we're doing, and this is something that nobody out there is doing or has ever done, and we are offering to the public rifle-rated shields, and these are ideal for home defense, because body armor is great. It's the coolest thing in the world. But if I got somebody breaking into my house, the 10 seconds it takes me to put it on could be vitally important to, turning the tide. Right. So we've developed, actually I should say we're in the process of developing. We haven't yet launched the low-cost version of these shields yet. But essentially an 18 by 24 inch level 3 shield capable of stopping your M193, your M80 ball, which is your 308, your M1943, which is your 7.62 by 39 mild steel core. And that's got the steel penetrator. We can pick those up with an all-polymer plate or shield. And those are going to retail for under $1,500.
What they weigh?
And now that is something that is going to be very useful to a lot of people because, again, somebody breaks into your house, every second counts. I personally would much rather grab a shield off the wall that's maybe got my pistol in a holder on the back side of the shield, and I'm ready for action in 1 second as opposed to 10. Right. Or, and that's if you're good at putting on your armor, right? It might take you 15 or 20 if you don't practice. Right. And that's critical. Those seconds count. And so that's something else we're launching.
That sounds really cool. I mean, it sounds like, the situation I have in my house is all the bedrooms are upstairs on the second floor. And so our drill to the kids is, I go and I hold the stairwell and they all funnel into our room as a fallback into the safe room. And then I will fall back as they get, past me, I'll fall back and hold off that stairwell. But if I had something to stand on that corner and protect that stairwell, it would even help them to get past me into the bedroom. So it's 18 by 24 and it'll stop up to 308s then. And how much does it weigh? I mean, what kind of weight are we talking about?
You're talking 12, 13 pounds with the handle and forearm strap, the whole deal. So it's actually very light. Really perfect for home defense because, what's better than a big shield you can put in front of you?
Right. Now, is it clear? And,
we've got several different cuts, right? We've made cutouts, oddly enough, just like the ancient Greek hoplites did, right? Their shields had a weapons mount. Right. And we've done the same thing, right? So that, you can operate this thing a couple different ways. You can lay it on your knee and support it there and have your hand come over the other weapons mount at the top. It's good for hand-to-hand combat too. I mean, we've played around with it, and you can, with that cutout, you can pin a guy up to the wall by his neck. I mean, you really can. It's very effective. You can, swat a guy with it backhand. It's small enough that it's very effective for that type of situation. And, given the fact that it'll stop those serious rifle rounds, that is a very good advantage to have for home defense. Not to discount the value of body armor because seriously, there are times and places where obviously that is critical and, every scenario is different. But, and to talk more about body armor, some of the things that we've done there are to partner with people like S&S Precision that make our plate frame carriers, which is basically about as light and minimalistic a carrier as you can get. Some people look at photos of my armor and say, "Oh my gosh, well look at all those gaps." Well, what they're not getting is that the gaps that they perceive are really the absence of Kevlar. Well, we talked about this earlier. What's Kevlar going to stop? 44 Magnum or frag. That's not the threat you need to be worried about. You need to be focused on stopping rifle rounds. You need to maintain your mobility, reduce your heat and wear stress. That's what this carrier is so good for. In fact, when you load it up with level 3 plates, they're buoyant. This rig takes on 0 water, so what happens when you jump in the water? You literally float as if you're wearing a life preserver.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really amazing stuff. And so, I won't sell anything cheap. I won't sell anything ineffective. I only sell the best, but I try to sell it at the most affordable price possible.
Right.
And so, if you look out there and you see similar stuff, you're typically going to see that we're significantly lower in cost. Now, of course, nobody else has shoulder plates, and I'm limited on what I can do there because the materials are expensive.
Yeah.
And that makes my cost expensive. And, even though I haven't taken a dime from the company and I don't really care about making money, I'd be a fool not to at least try to earn a profit. So I've got to put some kind of markup on it.
Well, yeah.
And it's minimal, the markup I put on things. And my partners have urged me to raise prices on certain things, but I really try to keep it as affordable as I can, and again, I'm doing this for reasons above and beyond, finances, because just like you said, I rely on God for my provision.
Right.
And He will provide.
So say someone's on a budget and they can only afford to buy, the first level of gear. What would you recommend that be for, Joe Blow, that not, a police officer or anything like that, but just a person that wanted to try to build up their armor over a period of time? Can they buy that in sections and add to the armor as they go, or?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what I have a lot of people buying, that are budget conscious, are these level 4 plates that we have. It's a single curve level 4 plate, weigh at about 7.7 pounds each, 10 by 12. And those will stop 30-06 armor piercing rounds and every other lesser threat, right? So you're talking multi-hit on M855 or M193 or M193 or M80 ball, all those rounds, it's going to pick up, NIJ rates it to 6. I've personally, put 10 rounds of M193 into a little shoulder plate with no penetration.
Wow.
So these things they perform well. They're lightweight and comfortable. Most of our plates come with padding on the backside, which is there for comfort, but also to reduce blunt force impact trauma. So they are very comfortable to wear. That level 4 plate I was telling you about, that starts at $159 a piece.
Okay.
Actually, it starts at $129 for an 8x10 and goes up to $159 for a 10x12. And that's a very good plate. Personally, I don't think you need level 4, but because of its affordability, it is very popular.
Yeah.
Now, for somebody that's got a little bit more budget, I recommend a double curve, a swimmer plate in the front, which is just like your SAPI plate, which has the top 2 corners cut back a little bit, to give you some greater range of mobility.
Articulation.
But the swimmer plate those cuts are exaggerated a little bit. It helps you shoulder the rifle a little bit more, helps you move your arms that much easier. And level 3 plus is that much lighter. It's neutrally buoyant, and and it'll pick up multiple hits against all the threats that you're ever likely to face. Are you likely to ever be shot at by a 30-06 armor piercing round? Probably not. Even in an open war kind of a situation, that's not a typical round that's going to come at you. It's primarily the M855 or the M193 or that M1943, that 7.62 mild steel core. And, level 3 plus is going to pick up all of those. When you're talking double curve, now the level 4 costs more than level 3 plus, so it's more affordable. The double curve is certainly much more comfortable to wear, especially long term. So I recommend that. Swimmer in the front, SAPI in the back, whatever level suits you, but I recommend 3 plus.
Sure. And then later on, they can add the shoulder plates, and they can add, of course, that $1,500 helmet or something.
You bet. Yeah, right. Or not the $1,500 helmet in many cases, but yes, you can. And that's the thing about everything that I sell is that it's modular, right? The shoulder plates will attach to any existing carrier.
Okay.
And the rigs that I sell, you can swap things out. You can change it up however you want. The thickness and dimensions of the plates between levels are the same. So literally, you can take the same carrier, even though it's this Kydex carrier that's been shaped to the plate specifically. You can swap it out for different levels. If you do take it to a plate, you can easily swap it out for a new one. And, so everything is designed just as, you were asking there. You can pick up one bit at a time. You can build your gear up over time. You can start with a cheap carrier that you can get just about anywhere. Put any one of my plates in it. Attach the shoulder plates to it. No problem. Very easy to do. And, really a lot of fun, getting into this stuff and testing it and wearing it and upgrading it. It's, no different than building up your AR-15.
Sure. That's cool. So if they got questions, they can call the company and talk to your representatives, or to call and talk to you, or how does that work?
They're usually going to call and talk to me.
Okay.
And I answer my phone at odd hours on odd days. That number is 855-ARMOR-01.
Okay, let me type that in there.
And they can call that anytime. I can calls at midnight before my wife, slaps me across the head when I do, but I do, and the reason being is, doctors are on call all the time. Why? Because they're saving lives.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm doing is no different. So I want to be there for people, and as much as I can. There's some times where I can't pick up the phone, but 95% of the time or greater, I'm on it.
Gotcha.
And I try to make myself available because there's so much mystery, because people have so many questions. Yeah. I can save them so much time with just 10, 15 minutes on the phone.
Cool. Yeah, that's the good thing about being able to talk to the right person the first time.
You bet.
You don't waste
Absolutely.
a lot of money on stuff you don't need. Good deal.
That's right.
Doug, you got questions? You've been awful quiet over there.
Well, no, I actually do have a question. I'm just trying to figure out how to ask it. So say you did take a hit on one of your plates, your shoulder plate or chest plate, whichever one. On this equipment, how many hits can it withstand before it loses its integrity?
Okay, right. So, like I said, with the shoulder plates, which are only 6x8, right? It's a relatively small plate. I put 10 rounds of M193. That's that 55 grain 5.56 round into it with no penetration. Now it starts to beat up the plate pretty good. What happens is when a round strikes the plate, the mechanism that it uses to defeat it, in this type of armor anyways, is that, some delamination takes place at the point of impact. Mm-hmm. And you'll get a little bulging on the back typically, which is referred to as back face deformation. Mm-hmm. And according to the NIJ standards, provided that back face deformation is less than 44 millimeters, it is considered, a safe hit. A safe stop of the round. And, I can make some of my test data available to you guys if you want to post it, but, shot one on any one of our shoulder plates, or 3+ or greater, the back face deformation is, somewhere in the 20 millimeter range. It's nothing. Mm-hmm. And, you can really beat these things up. They can take a lot of rounds. I guess your question is before they become ineffective, it's almost like that, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? I don't know yet. I haven't found out.
Yeah.
How many, because literally it'll just keep taking bullets.
Yeah.
And, after 15 or 20 rounds, you start to get bored. You think it's, whatever, it's never going to die. It'll get misshapen a little bit after a dozen rounds, but it keeps stopping them.
Yeah.
And, that's what's important. I get a lot of people talking about steel plates and the fact that, they can take repeated hits and, you don't get the same kind of back face deformation. And, in a Mad Max scenario, how perfect is that? Well, you know what? That's a fair argument if it weren't for the fact that spall is also a concern.
Yeah.
And I don't care how much rhino liner you put on it, but again, I've seen bullets do weird things, and I've seen it eat up that rhino liner real quick and, start spitting hot, sharp spall in every direction.
Yeah.
And you get some of that in your face or throat, and it's game over.
Yeah.
You get an M193 punch through it, and it's game over. So better to, get the real thing. Get a couple extra plates if you got the budget for it. Fine. But, this is what is required. This is why our military uses this. Yeah. And they don't use steel. This is why police, by and large, don't use steel. Only in small departments with zero budget do any officers ever wear steel. And typically within 5 minutes of hearing me talk, they're ready to place an order for something better. Mm-hmm. And, and I don't want to talk about anybody's product or anybody's gear. That's not what I'm trying to do. Really, more than anything, I feel it's my duty to inform people, to protect people, to be that watchman on the wall. And I can't do that if I'm, blowing smoke at them. I've got to tell it for what it is.
Yeah. No, you got some cool products. I really enjoyed getting to meet you guys and see your products out there, and I think our listeners will be well served by checking out your website and calling you up and asking questions.
Absolutely,
we really appreciate your
that
time.
web address. Go ahead. If you want it, is www.hoplitearmor.com. HOPLITEARMOR.com. Named after the ancient Greek citizen soldiers, who I often like to say we should be emulating. Free men ready to defend a free society.
Right. Not off watching the games with the rest of the people. we should be watching for the enemies.
I'm too busy playing in God's World Series to worry about anything else.
Yeah, you and me both. So I appreciate it. I've got your website in the show link. I have a link here in our show notes. So for our listeners, they can click on our show notes and find that link. And then I've got the phone number plugged in here, so you can reach you that way as well. Anything we haven't covered yet tonight? Let's see.
We could ramble for hours, but I think we got to the heart of it.
Your voice is still going strong. I thought we might have some. Thought we might find something else out. But
did I miss something? I don't
think so. I think you covered everything. No.
I think so.
You going to be at next year's VFOB? It's going to be back up in Big Fork again?
I believe so. Yeah,
they've got a new location.
They're at the Benghazi Memorial.
Yeah, they're actually going to have a new location. I don't know the exact address of it, but it's going to be big enough that they can shoot there and have the displays and have the dinner and all that at one event. So,
very good.
So it's going to be a lot larger. It's going to be 3 days instead of one. So it's going to.
Well, you're more up to speed on that than I am.
I just heard about it. So.
I'm not even a veteran myself. They reached out to me and asked me to take part in this thing, and I said, well, veteran family-owned business. I'm not a veteran. They said, well, we don't care. We need an armor guy. So okay, I'm happy to be a part of it. And I only found out about it a few days before the event. So
you showed well. You did well. You had as good a setup as anyone else I saw.
Got lucky on that one. God makes a way, and when He does, you're wise to follow. Yeah. So and I met a lot of great people there. I have to say, for as small of a show as it was, I had a much higher percentage of people coming to talk to me and ask questions than I do at some of these other much larger shows.
Yeah.
And, so that was encouraging. And I did get to meet a lot of great people involved in the VFOB and a lot of local people that I hadn't yet met that, it's encouraging to meet like-minded people and to have these kind of conversations.
Right.
And, sometimes you walk away feeling a little bit down because, when that many people see things the way that you do, you realize, oh, crap, I'm right, and we're coming right at it, aren't we?
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So, we just got to be strong. We got to follow the Lord. We got to, be willing to lay our lives down for the things and the people that we care about.
Right.
But if we can extend that, if we can, provide some longevity to our existence through proper gear, even in the face of a worst case scenario, we're better for.
Yeah, you're right there.
Yep.
Well, I think the only thing we haven't covered was your move to Montana. You had that
Right.
in there.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that all came
that.
about, as a result of, cancer. In fact, prior to being diagnosed with cancer, I felt a calling to leave where I was. I grew up in D.C., but when I was about 11 years old, my father moved us to Southern California, which used to be a great place. Empty beaches and beautiful girls. Who can beat that? But it changed real quickly. It got overdeveloped, and a whole new element really sort of set in. A new culture took root, and I really wanted to get out of there. And I'm glad you asked this, because this is an interesting story. Mm-hmm. So, I wanted to get out of there, and I was praying about it, and God just kept telling me Montana. And, of course, I look into the laws, and I see that it's, a very citizen-friendly state. In fact, It's the only state in the Union that has withdrawal from the Union written into the state constitution, which is, of course, by definition, the legally binding contract by which we joined the Union.
Right.
And I can't quote this verbatim. I think it's Section 2, Article 2, essentially says, any attempt by the federal government to infringe on the gun rights of the citizens of the state of Montana is cause for automatic withdrawal from the Union. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I like that. I see the way things are going. I think absolutely that's where I want to be. And there was part of me that was, looking at other countries. Do I just get completely out of harm's way? Yep. What do I do? And my son was in first grade at the time, and his assignment was to dig into your family tree and, produce a report. And this has happened to me time again. When I go looking for my family tree, it's this notebook my father brought home one day when I was a kid. And every time I go looking for it, there it is. I don't know where it is. Bam, it pops up. And I knew it was in my storage facility, and I go to look for it. And I kid you not, when I opened the door, the thing fell at my feet. And it fell at my feet open to a page that I had never read before. And it talked about my ancestor that ran a shipping company that delivered arms and ammunition to General Washington.
Wow. That
had a letter of marque to pirate British ships. And it talked about how we were there at the surrender of Cornwallis and all these major events.
Wow.
And how, even going back to the Mayflower. And I thought, there is no way I am leaving this country. I will fight and die and spill my blood for this place.
Right.
If for no other reason than to honor the sacrifices of my ancestors.
Right.
And, so, okay, Montana it is. And, so I'm focusing in on Northwest Montana, and I come across a gentleman by the name of Pastor Chuck Baldwin. I believe you attended his church there at Liberty Fellowship.
Yep.
And, so I dragged my family up here for a vacation in 2013. And, I wanted them to fall in love with it, so I rented a nice little lake house. Mm-hmm. Turns out the owner was a Christian.
Yeah.
And I told him my whole deal, and he cut me a big break and made it affordable. So, my family got this great experience, first time in Montana, right there on Flathead Lake.
Oh, cool.
And, we were looking at property, and we didn't see anything that really impressed us, but our realtor emailed me something after the first night of looking at stuff, and it was the house I'm in now. And I thought, my goodness, this is a 5,000 square foot house with a 1,800 square foot shop on 10 acres for less than it would cost me to buy a condo in California.
Uh-huh.
So I put in an offer, and, at the time I literally had about $5,000 in the bank, and I gave him a check for $4,000.
Yeah.
And, I said, if it's God's will, I'll get the down payment. And somehow, and this whole thing was like one big Jason and the Argonauts, one challenge after another type deal. But God made it happen. I sold what I had to sell. I even had to pay off, $15,000 in taxes that I owed. But somehow, even on top of that, I was able to save up the money it took to put a down payment, move my family up here. I showed up here, I kid you not, I had less than $1,000 left to my name. And what kind of madman pulls a stunt like that? Well, only me, or anybody with enough faith to be blind to, the potential hazards. But,
that's right.
I pulled it off by the grace of God. And, and that's what got us up here. And, it's been a hard fight, it's Tankers is a lot to manage. And when I first bought this place, it was covered in 5-foot high tumbleweed everywhere.
Wow.
So, we started by, pulling that all into giant piles. And, of course, what's great about here over California is I can burn all that right in my front yard. So, we had all these big burn piles and had a lot of fun with that. And, it's been a tough adjustment. I really believe that, Montana is the tip of the spear, Northwest Montana in particular, Flathead Valley. This is the tip of the spear. This is where God is calling a lot of his people, especially the ones that got some fight in them.
Yeah.
We got a lot of veterans up here, and I feel like it's a proving ground.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people, come for these reasons and give up and leave, and I've seen life get harder for them. Mm-hmm. And, I myself went through the same thing, very difficult and challenging, especially with no thyroid. That's where I had cancer, what I had removed. And, that can affect your endurance and things like that. So, some physical struggles and, financial struggles and emotional struggles. But, I just gave it over to God and kept fighting. And I finally now, some time over the course of the last 4 or 5 months, really sort of settled into and got a handle on life here in Montana. Awesome. And, on this piece of property. And, thank God for it, because I'll tell you, we homeschool our kids now. Mm-hmm. They're well-mannered. They're well-educated. They love the Lord. Both my children, they're only 9 and 11, but they've recently both made commitments for Christ and been baptized. I had the honor of baptizing my daughter myself just the other day. And, just amazing things are happening. And for those that are willing to hear the call and persevere, and we hear that a lot from our Lord, right? Mm-hmm. Persevere. And for those that are willing to do it, Montana holds the promise of freedom and the preservation of freedom, because of the laws, because of the people, because of our location. Mm-hmm. There's so many factors that play into it, but it is a proving ground. Yeah. If you're going to come here, be ready to fight your demons, because they're going to come at you tooth and nail. For real.
I know what you're saying.
You've been there.
Part of that trip out there was my son and I. We were looking at property. I'm friends with Chuck, and then Baldwin also with a writer you might have heard of, James Wesley Rawls. He's been advising me some locations, and so we went and looked at some properties over in Idaho as well as Montana, and
good.
Roamed around over there. We were up there about 3 weeks total before we headed back, and so it was a journey. But where you live is the most that place called to me more than anywhere else. Over in Idaho, there's a lot of people leaving in droves out of Washington and California on that western side of Idaho, and I was like, man, there's more people here than there are at my home, back in my home county. So I think
there's something special about Montana. God holds a special purpose for this place. And, when you read in the book of Revelation and it talks about Mystery Babylon, number one, I can't help but think that that's the modern U.S. Mm-hmm. And then when it says, come out of her, my people, that you not, suffer her plagues, I wonder, is that secession?
Yeah.
Is it? I tend to think maybe it is, and I'll tell you this, if Hillary Clinton gets elected, I'm going to be talking about nothing but secession because that's a nightmare that I want no part of.
Yeah, you in Texas and probably Kentucky and Tennessee and most of the southern states.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. All the states that got people with their heads on straight are going to want to follow suit.
Yeah, I understand. Well, anything else we didn't cover? I think we've hit all the topics we wanted to here.
I think so. I think God's will has been served. We got the word out like watchmen on the wall. We have warned the public. We have informed them. We have educated them, I hope.
Yep. And
I am available, as always, for questions or comments or anything that anybody wants to say. And they've got my number, and they've got my web address. So
awesome.
There it is.
All right. Well, Lyman, we appreciate your time tonight. We appreciate your voice holding together, and give God praise for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little raspy, but I'm hanging in there.
Hey, you did good.
Doing better than I usually do. So we appreciate you coming on tonight, and all of our listeners, please check out Hoplite's website and course, as he said, he's willing to take questions if you've got some questions for him. So thanks again for coming on the show, and maybe we'll run into each other again before we head back up to Montana next August. I guess it's going to be next year.
My door is always open. Feel free to tell me when you're coming, and I'll make a room for you.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen.
All right.
Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate you helping to get a little more exposure for the company and the product and everything that we're trying to do. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night. God bless.